So good evening, everyone. We are here to discuss the learners with additional needs. So I am teacher Rachel, and let's learn together with teacher Wella, teacher Sansai, and also teacher Terence. So before we start, let's have a prayer first, which is to lead by teacher Wella.
Okay, everybody, let's put ourselves in the Holy Spirit of God. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, grant me each day the desire to do my best, to grow mentally and morally, as well as physically, to be kind and helpful to my classmates and teachers, to be honest with myself as well as with others. Help me to be a good sport and smile when I lose as well as when I win. Teach me the value of true friendship. Help me always to conduct myself so as to bring credit to my school. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.
So let's have a recap first from the previous reporter. So we prepared a jumble of words and guess what word it is. So let's see if everyone is paying attention to last week's discussion. Next, please. So guess the word. Can you guess the word, Miss Pamela?
A typical development, Miss.
So let's see if it's correct. Yes, it's correct. Very good. We can see that you are paying attention to previous discussion. So the next one is, so guess the word, Miss Tiobeo. Miss Villaveles. So I think Miss Tiobeo and Miss Villaveles are not around. So let's have Miss Bacalaños to guess the word.
Social development.
So next, please, if we can see if it's correct. So Mrs. Bacalaños, say it correct. So the next one and the last one is, so can you guess the word, Ate Desire?
Cognitive development.
So let's see if it's correct. Yes, it's right. So very good, everyone, for participating, and let's start with the discussion. Next slide, please. So our topic is learners with additional needs. So learners who are gifted and talented. Gifted learners are those whose potential is distinctly above average in one or more of the following domains: intellectual, creative, social, and physical. They need services and activities not ordinarily provided by the school in order to fully develop their full potentials. So learners who are gifted and talented are individuals who exhibit exceptional abilities in one or more areas of intellectual, creative, artistic, or leadership domain. So for example, the creative thinkers. So these learners possess exceptional creativity and imagination. So they have a unique ability to come up with new and innovative ideas, and they excel in areas such as writing, music, and dramas. So the next slide is the successful. So can you please read, Miss Tiobeo? So I think Miss Tiobeo is not around. Miss Magdadaro.
the successful, a level of motivated teacher and parents pleaser who fits the system and learns to underachieve, therefore might not reach their potential. The successful needs more challenge in a safe environment for risk taking.
So the successful type is someone who fits well into the system but may not reach their full potential without more challenge. So the next one is the challenging. A divergent and disruptive creative thinker, possibly also a pessimist and introvert. The challenging can be noisy in class and too much group work may cause distress and uninterruption of emotion. So teachers are not keep on to many of these types of students in class. So the challenging type is a creative thinker who may disrupt class and struggle with group work. So next please. So the underground. Can you please read Miss Bustamante? Miss Igot.
The underground, previously highly motivated and intensely interested in academic or creative pursuits. The underground begins to deny their talent as their need to belong rises dramatically.
So the underground type hides their giftedness to fit with peers. So the dropouts. Please read Miss Villaveles.
The dropout. The angry and frustrated students whose needs have not been recognized for many years and therefore rejected in the system. They express themselves by being depressed or withdrawn and responding defensively.
So the dropouts are the kind of people that are angry and frustrated due to feeling neglected by the system and require counseling. Next slide, please. Previous slide, please, Miss Navari.
So the double level. Kindly please read Miss Parenzo. Anzin, Viente, please read.
The double labeled are physically or emotionally handicapped in some way or have a learning disability. This group does not show behaviors of giftedness that can identify them in schools.
Okay, thank you. So the double-leveled class is the students are easily ignored as they are seen as average. They are also often impatient and critical with a low self-esteem. Like for example, they show signs of stress, frustration, rejections, helplessness, or isolation. It focuses more on their weaknesses and therefore fail to nurture their strengths. The next one is the autonomous. Kindly please read Ms. Magdadaro.
The autonomous, independent and self-direct, the autonomous learner makes the school system work for them and feels comfortable creating opportunities for themselves.
Okay, thank you. So the autonomous class, the word independent and self-directed, they make up their own minds about how hard to work in the circumstance and what else they have planned. They're also well respected by adults and peers, and frequently serve in some leadership capacity with their school or community, but still need a good coach at the appropriate level. Next slide, please. So we have 5 ways to support gifted learners. First, learn. Second, create. Third, use. Fourth, utilize. Fifth, explore. So first is to learn. Learn how gifted students think. If you want to support gifted students in your classroom, it's important that you make an effort to learn how they think and learn about the different struggles they face. Understanding that gifted students have special needs, requirements, and trained in behavior will help you meet their needs and better support them in the classroom. The second one is create or creative tired assignment for students. Tiered assignments can help you meet the needs of all students. The basic standards, objective, and design an assignment on that standards to make the middle tier. Once the middle tier is finished, you make the other tiers by adding support for at-risk children. And adding support for at-risk children, and adding challenge for gifted students. Here are 2 simple ways you can add challenge to assignments. First, give gifted students more complex numbers in math assignment or more difficult texts to read. Second one is add a second component to assignments, such as having them apply the skill they've learned to a real situation or asking them to write an explanation of their thinking. The third one is use or include a variety of levels in your classroom library. Make sure your classroom library has a variety of texts to support the reading ability and interest of gifted students. You can also encourage students to bring reading materials from home, but make sure the materials they bring challenge them to learn new words and increase their reading skills. The fourth one is utilize their talents and interests. Gifted students are often asked to do busy work when they finish assignments ahead of others. Instead of taking that approach, try utilizing gifted students' talent and interest to further explore a skill. For example, students could write or draw something related to the assignment or skill, or they could act out solution to the problem or project. The fifth one is explore real world or a real world application. So gifted students understand math, science concept, and grammar rules very quickly. You can encourage them to move beyond the skill they're learning by applying it real world. For example, they can explore how, for example, they can explore how area and perimeter affect an architect's design or how scientists use classification to understand animal life and how it functions. Next slide, please. So the next one is learners with difficulties seeing. Kindly please read Lastimoso.
Learners with difficulty seeing. There is no typical vision impaired student. The impairment may be the result of a range of conditions, and its impact will depend on the type, extent, and timing of vision loss.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lastimoso. Learners with difficulty seeing the impact of impairment on learning will vary significantly according to the nature and extent of vision loss. So some students will have been born without vision, and others will have lost it gradually. Some people will have no vision at all, and others will have some vision, be light sensitive, or have limited peripheral vision. And it is also possible that vision and light sensitive will fluctuate day to day. Next is
Impact of vision impairment and blindness. Can you read, please, Miss Biente? Please read, Miss Biente. Miss Biente is not around. Kindly read Miss Edolantes. Miss, kindly read Miss Ocampo. Are you guys still around?
Yes.
Okay.
yes, me.
Impact of vision impairment and blindness. The learning processes of students with vision impairment may be affected in the following ways. First, students with vision impairment may access information in a variety of ways. For example, braille, audio tape, or enlarged print. Second, students who need information put into alternative formats must wait, often up to 6 to 8 weeks for the material to be produced for them.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ocampo. So when we say vision impairment, this is those people that have clear vision, or sometimes we say that they are blind, but the truth is they are not blind as in blind, but they are they can see, they can they can see, but not like ours that very clear, no. And obviously, when you have vision impairment, you can't read and write. So these people need something that can help them to use with. Example is that using braille or audio tape or enlarged print. So this is braille look alike. Can you see everyone?
Yes.
Okay, this is braille. So as you can see, you can touch it. If you have siblings or cousins that have vision impairment, this is the braille can use them to recognize what letter it is or something like that. This is braille. And second dot is students who need information put into alternative format must wait often up to 6 to 8 weeks for the material to be produced for them. So students who require information in a format that is different from the standard material, such as braille or audio tape, will wait typically to 6 to 8 weeks for the material to be produced. This can result the students falling behind their peers in the class because they wait for a very long time. That's why they are left behind or falling behind among others. So please next, Miss. Students with vision impairment may feel isolated in learning environment, which can have impact of learning. Yes, that's true. Students with vision impairment may experience difficulties in assessing and interacting with learning materials such as textbook, presentation, and visual aid. As a result, they may feel isolated and slip out in their learning environment, leading to a negative impact of their ability to learn and participate fully in the class activities. So without inappropriate support and accommodations, students with vision impairment may struggle to keep up their peers and miss out of important education opportunities. Do you agree that having vision impairments can affect your study? Miss Bustamante, did you agree? Are you agree? How about you, Miss Medrano? Do you agree? Just
Yes,
say
ma'am.
yes. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Next is headaches often result from eye strain. This may reduce considerably the study time available to these students. So eye strain can indeed cause headaches, particularly if the students are spending long periods of time studying or reading or without taking educate tasks or break, When the eyes are forced to focus for a long period of time without rest, the muscle in the eyes can become fatigued and cause discomfort, which can lead them to headaches. So if the students are experiencing headaches due to eye strain, it is important that they need time or take a regular break while studying and engage in eye exercise to help the eye muscle. For example, they can look away from their screen or book every 20 minutes and focus on the object that distance for 20 seconds. This can also they can also try eyes massage, which involve gently rubbing your eyelids and temples to reduce eye strain. Next is participation interaction in tutorials may be limited. It is difficult for students who cannot see the body language that interaction of the others feel comfortable about participating. So in tutorials or online classes where students cannot see each other's body language or facial expression, it can be challenging for some students to feel comfortable participating and interacting with others without being able to see how others are reacting or responding. So students may feel uncertain about how their contribution will be received or interpreted. This lack of visual cues can make it harder for students to gauge the atmosphere and dynamics of the group, which can limit their engagement and confidence in participating. So please next, Miss. Teaching strategies. Can we read, Miss Medrano?
Teaching strategies. There is a range of inclusive in teaching and assessment strategies that can assist all students to learn better. There are some specific strategies that are useful in teaching a group which includes students with vision impairment.
Okay, thank you. So inclusive teaching and assessment strategies are very important to help all students to learn, including those with vision impairments. Here are some examples of strategies that can be useful in teaching a group with a student who have vision impairment. So example are the provide materials in accessible formats, use descriptive language, provide hands-on experience, use assistive technology, and allow extra time for tasks. So by implementing these strategies, you can create more inclusive learning environment for all students, including those with vision impairment. Please next, Miss Bihagan. So, prepare as much information as possible in electronic format. This makes it much easier to prove materials in accessible formats and allow users with disability to adapt the information for a format which is suitable for them. So preparing information in electronic format means converting into a digital from form can be accessed, stored, and manipulated using electronic devices such as computers, tablets, and smartphones. This makes it easier to provide the information in accessible formats, which can be adapted to suit the needs of users with disabilities. For example, users with visual impairments can use screen readers to read out the next text, while users with hearing impairment can use captioning or transcript to access audio content. So by providing information in electronic format, organizations can ensure that these materials are accessible to the wider range of users, regardless of their abilities or disabilities. Next is make required book list and course materials available in early so there is sufficient time for them to be produced in audio or braille if required. So making required book lists and course materials available early means providing students with a list of textbook and other materials needed to a course. Well, before the start of the semester or term. So this gives students sufficient time to obtain these materials, whether by purchasing them, borrowing them from the library, or producing them in alternative formats such as audio or braille. So producing materials in alternative format, it is important for students who have visual impairments or other disabilities that makes it difficult for them to read standard print. By providing these materials in accessible formats like audio or braille, they can fully participate in the course and have equal access to the same information as their peers. Next is indicate compulsory text in your reading list. Nothing important chapter is possible. So in teaching strategies, including compulsory text, is your reading list can be effective way to ensure that students have common knowledge base and can engage in productive class discussion. Next is for student with vision impairment, your teaching style will be need to be verbal. So when teaching students with vision impairment, it can be helpful to use verbal explanation that are clear and concise. Avoid using language or jargon that may difficult for the students to understand. Try to break down information into small, manageable, and chunks and use repetition to reinforce the concept. Okay, concept. Please next, Miss Bihagan.
Wait for a minute, ha?
Okay. Okay, verbalize what is written on the blackboard on the PowerPoint. So verbalizing what is written on the blackboard means that the teacher reads aloud the information written on the board while stimulously explaining its meaning to the students. This helps to reinforce the information visually presented on the board and to ensure that all students can understand it. So academic activities which can take up campus such as industry visit, interviews, or field work may pose problems and on-campus alternative may need to be considered. So academic activities that occur outside the campus such as visiting industries, conducting interviews, or doing field works can present difficulties that may require finding an campus alternatives. So for example, if students are required to visit a factory to understand manufacturing process, but the factory is far away and the transportation is difficult. So the school may need to consider a virtual tour or classroom stimulation instead. This is done to ensure that students receive the necessary education and experience despite potential obstacles that may arise with off-campus activities. Next is provide an individual orientation to laboratory equipment or computers in order to minimize the anxiety likely in an unfamiliar environment. So for me, it is very hassle to provide those two individuals laboratory equipment or computer just to minimize their anxiety. No, because when you are in new laboratory or working with unfamiliar equipment, it is normal to feel anxious or overwhelmed. To minimize this anxiety, an individual orientation can be provided to help you understand and become familiar with the equipment or computer. Just do not rush everything. Just try until you feel comfortable at that place. Do you agree, Miss Katipay? How about you, Miss Gwendolyn Villaveles? Do you agree that you feel anxious or you are like you feel anxious or overwhelmed when you are in different places or surroundings like that? Do you agree? Hello, everyone. Just say yes or no. Do you agree?
Yes,
That you feel
Miss.
yes. Okay. So consider supplementing laboratory practicals, experiments, or field trips, for example, by audio taping commentaries. So supplementing laboratories practicals or field trips with audio commentaries involves recording verbal explanation of what is happening during the activity. This can be done by using digital voice recording or smartphone or any other audio recording device. So for example, during laboratory practical, the teacher of instructor can use audio recorder to explain the purpose of the experiment, the equipment and material used, and the steps involved in conducting the experiment. Students can listen to the audio documentary as they perform the experiment, helping them to better understand the process and specific concept being explored. Please inform the students if you plan to use video, slides, or PowerPoint and discuss alternative ways of presenting the necessary information. So when you're creating a plan or preparing to teach a class, it is important to consider the best way to present the necessary information to your student. This might involve using videos, slides, presentations, or PowerPoint to help illustrate the key concept or ideas. However, it is important to keep in mind that all students learn in the same way. Some may find it easier to understand concept through hands-on activities, while others may prefer to read or written materials or engage in a group discussion. So therefore, as a teacher, it is important to inform your students ahead of time. If you plan to use video, slides, or PowerPoints, and also to discuss alternative ways of presenting the information if necessary. This might include providing written materials, hands-on activities, or group discussion to help students better understand the materials. By being flexible and open to different learning styles, you can create more inclusive discussion or more inclusive and effective learning environment for your students. Please, next. Please. Because students with vision impairment are generally slower than other students in completing reading tasks. Reading slower, considerable time is involved in getting material tape or braille, providing reading list well before the start of the course so that reading can begin early. So students with vision impairment typically require more time to complete reading tasks compared to their peers. They may read at a slower pace, need materials to be described into braille language. It's recommended to provide well in advance.
Alangan, katulog ka na na.
Please mute your microphone, Miss Yobeo. Thank you.
To ensure that these students have adequate time to complete their reading assignment, it is provide reading list well and to start at manage their workload more effectively. By doing so, students with vision impairment have equal access to course materials and opportunities academically. Next is providing the impairment with prior notice that you plan to use film or video in a class. Allow him or her the option to request to see its forehead. So
Na next na ko.
yes. Please, okay, that's it. So if you let a student with vision impairment know ahead of time that you plan to show a film or video in class, it gives the opportunity to ask to see it beforehand. This way, they can ensure that they have access to the materials in a format that work for them, such as with audio descriptions or subtitles, and won't miss out on important information during the class. So it is a simple way to ensure that all students can fully participate in learning experience. Please, next. Can you read, Miss Paka?
Yes, Miss. Asaan na?
Student, first that.
A student may have difficulty finding his or her essay or assignment in a pigeonhole or amongst a pile of other students' work.
Okay, thank you. So sometimes when a student turn in their essays or assignment, the teachers or professor may recognize them by placing them in a pigeonholes or in their pile with other students' work. This can make it difficult for a student to find own work because it may be mixed in their other papers. It is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. So it is hard to locate something specific when it's surrounded by a lot of similar things. This can be frustrating for the student as they may need their work back to review or make revisions. So I have here the examples of pictures of pigeonholes so that you will know what it looks like. So can you see, everyone? This is pigeonholes. Can you see? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Picture. So this is pigeonhole look alike. Okay. So next is, please read Mr. Bandalan. Mr. Bandalan, please read. So, Mr. Bandalan is not around. Can you read Miss Igot?
A student may have difficulty finding his or her essay or assignment in a pigeonhole or amongst a pile of other students' work. Students may not be able to read your handwritten comments.
Is this Miss Igot?
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So, some students may have difficulty reading handwritten comments because of various reasons, such as poor handwriting and familiarity with handwriting style or visual impairments. So additionally, handwritten comments may be difficult to read if they are smudged, unclear, or if the paper is poor quality. So to ensure that all students can understand the comments provided, teacher must consider using printed comments or making sure that their handwriting is clear and easy to read. So next is, students are usually able to access online learning materials with the use of assistive technology if websites follow accessible web design guidelines. So accessible web design guidelines ensure that websites are designed in a way that makes them usable by people with disabilities, such as visual, auditory, motor, or cognitive impairments. When these guidelines are followed, students with disabilities can access online learning materials using assistive technologies, such as screen readers, captioning, or keyboard navigation. This helps to ensure that online learning is inclusive and equitable for all students, regardless of their disabilities or abilities. Next is the vision of some students may be affected by glare from fluorescent light or sunlight, so may need to attend some aspect of your teaching environment. So some students may have difficulty seeing due to glare from fluorescent lights or sunlight in the classroom. So as a result, it may be necessary to make adjustments to the teaching environment to minimize glare and ensure that all students can see clearly. So this could include adjusting the and positioning of lights using blinds or curtains to block or direct sunlight, or providing individual accommodations such as anti-glare filters for students who need them. By attending to this aspect of teaching environment, you can help create a more accessible and inclusive learning environment for all students. The last one is use tactile graphics where necessary. So use tactile graphic where necessary. Tactile graphics are diagrams that are designed to be touched and felt by individuals who are blind or visually impaired. So these graphics are created by adding raised lines, textures, and other tactile elements to a flat surface such as a paper or computer screen to provide a tactile presentation of visual information. So this is tactile graphics, looks alike. Just wait a minute. So this is tactile graphics. Can you see it, everyone?
Yes.
Yes, Miss.
Thank you. Please, next, Miss Bihagan.
So assessment strategies. Assessment strategies in considering alternative form of assessment, equal opportunity, not a guaranteed outcome is the objective. You not expected to lower standards to accommodate students with a disability, but rather are required to give them a reasonable opportunity to demonstrate what they have learned. So students with a mobility disability may need particular adjustments to assessment tasks. Once you have a clear picture of how the disability impacts on performance, you can consider alternative assessment strategies such as those suggested below. Next slide, please. So, students with vision impairment, may need particular adjustments to assessment tasks. So, assessments impairment information in variety of ways. For example, Braille, audio tape, or enlarged print. Braille readers cannot skim read and take up to 3 times as long as students to read a text. So provide extensions to assignments. Wait a minute. Examination papers may need to be enlarged or brailled with tactile diagrams, maps, etc. Some students may undertake examination using a personal computer with assessment software and then provide extra time with examination. Next slide, please. So can you please read it, Miss Lastimoso?
Tactile graphics. Tactile graphics, people with a vision impairment are finding tactile graphics extremely valuable and, in some cases, vital for successful study, work, and leisure.
So while people with a vision impairment are routinely provided with text transcribed into Braille, audio, or large print, the pictures, diagrams, and maps with accompanying text are often omitted or only very briefly described. Tactile graphics are means of conveying non-textual information to people who are blind or visually impaired and may include tactile representation of pictures, maps, graphs, diagrams, and other images. A person with a visual impairment can feel these raised lines and surfaces in order to obtain the same information that people who are sighted get through looking at pictures or other visual images. Tactile graphics, sometimes referred to as the haptic sensory modality, deliver information through touch. They often accompany braille textbooks to convey content in maps, charts, building layouts, schematic diagrams, and images on geometric figures. Graphics are often handmade in Braille transcribers as part of Braille textbook production. In some cases, the creation of tactile graphics is facilitated in automated process using various software applications. Next slide, please.
Miss
So,
Balon, please open your cam.
So tactile graphics are useful when the user is print impaired but has some tactile activity. Then a concept is not easily described in words. A real object is unavailable for touching. Next is the shape, form, or pattern is significant. It is necessary to illustrate scale and explain maps, technology, or biological relationship. A one-time reference or reminder is needed, and then last is the educational experience can be enhanced. So tactile graphics are not, however, exact replicas of the original, nor they are good for fine detail and representing very large graphics. So they should not be used without training and support materials. So next slide, please.
Next slides, please.
I read the next slide 2 times. I think 3 times.
Previous slide, Miss Biagan.
Is that one?
Back pa.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that
Back?
Thank you.
that slide. Next slide.
Okay, sorry.
Color blindness. So please read Miss Paka.
Okay, Miss. Color blindness or color deficiency is typically a genetic condition, although it can also be the result of injury, disease, or aging. Although not actually called color blindness, age-related color deficiency is a result of the yellowing of the corneas, which severely hampers the perception of violet and blue.
So color blindness, also known as color vision deficiency, is a vision condition where a person has difficulty distinguishing between certain colors. So this condition is typically genetic, but it can also be caused by injury, disease, or aging. So color blindness affects around 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women worldwide. So some common types of color blindness include red-green color blindness, blue-yellow color blindness, and total color blindness. So for example, for a blue-yellow color blindness is it may struggle to read graphs and charts that use these colors to represent data. And also, a person with total color blindness may have struggle or difficulty with everyday tasks such as choosing clothing that matches or identifying ripe fruits and vegetables. So next slide, please. So learners with difficulty hearing, please read Miss Villaveles.
Learners with difficulty hearing. According to Deafness Forum Australia, approximately 1 in 6 Australians has a significant hearing loss. Within this population, most individuals have some level of hearing impairment and only a small proportion
So learners with difficulty
of the
hearing.
group is
Okay, I think your connection is not audible. So learners with difficulty hearing, also known as hearing impairment, so is a condition where a person has difficulty hearing or processing sound. So this condition can be caused by genetics, injury, disease, or exposure to loud noise. So hearing impairment can range from mild to severe and can affect one or both ears. So some common types of hearing impairment includes conductive hearing loss and mixed hearing loss. So for example, a student with hearing loss may have
I'm sorry for the inconvenience due to the internet. I'm really sorry, guys.
It's okay.
next slide, please.
Okay. Impact of hearing loss. The learning processes of students with a hearing loss may be affected in the following ways. So kindly read the first bullet, Miss Medrano.
Students who have been defined in early childhood can be very different to students who have lost hearing later in life in terms of educational disadvantage, and deaf and hard of hearing students can sometimes prepare visual learning strategies.
Okay, thank you. So the first bullet is, for example, their range of vocabulary may be limited, which in turn may affect their level of English literacy. And the second bullet, kindly read Miss Hapal.
Deaf and hard of hearing, students can sometimes prefer visual learning strategies.
Okay, thank you, Miss Hapal. So the second bullet, this can be a challenge in an environment where much essential information is delivered exclusively by word of mouth. So next, please. Kindly read Miss Ocampo, are you there?
Yes.
Students with hearing loss may need to use assistive technology to participate in class.
Okay,
The
thank you.
impact.
So the third bullet is this assistive technology. Yes, this assistive technology can be the laptop, where software can be used to deliver Auslan interpreters or captioning. For some, it will be the form of listening devices. The fourth bullet, please kindly read Katipay.
The impact of hearing loss can cause delays in receiving learning material.
Okay, thank you. So some students who need information transcribe from tape most sometimes wait for a significant period of time for this to happen. It needs to be considered in terms of developing suitable timelines for the completion of work for each student. And the next one is students with hearing loss may appear isolated in the learning environment. So the possibility for social contact and interaction with other students is often limited. And this isolation or isolated or separateness may have an impact on learning. Next slide, please. So, kindly read Miss Igot.
Participation and interaction in tutorials may be limited. Students who cannot hear the flow and nuances of rapid verbal exchange will be at a disadvantage.
Okay, thank you. So some students who cannot hear the flow and no one says rapid verbal exchange will be at disadvantage. So some students with hearing loss coming straight from the school system have been familiar with a structured learning environment and may require a period of adjustment when entering into the post-secondary learning environment. So communication difficulties and adjustments may lead to a level of anxiety about performing in front of others This may affect participation in tutorials, particularly for students whose speech development has been impacted by their hearing loss. Next slide, please. So the next one is teaching strategies. There is a range of inclusive teaching strategies that can assist all students to learn, but there are some specific strategies that are useful in teaching a group that includes students with a hearing impairment. First, encourage students with a hearing loss to sit themselves towards the front of the lecture seat where they will have an obstructed line of vision. So this is particularly important that if the student is using an interpreter, lip reading, yelling and visual cues, or using hearing aid, which has a limited range. Be aware that some students may not be comfortable with these suggestions or have an alternative strategies and respect their choice. The second one is use assistive listening devices such as induction loads of this are available in the lecture 3. So hearing aids may include transmitted receiver, system with a clip-on microphone for the lecture. If using such a microphone, it is not necessary to change your speaking or teaching style. The third one, please read Miss Igot.
Teaching strategies. There is a range of inclusive teaching strategies that can assist all students to learn, but there are some specific strategies that are useful in teaching a group that includes students with a hearing impairment.
Okay, thank you. So the third bullet, ensure that any background noise is minimized. And repeat clearly and question asked by student in the lecture or class before giving a response. The next slide, please. The first bullet, kindly read Miss Sanchez.
Do not speak when facing the blackboard. Be aware that mustache, birds, hands, book, or microphone in front of your face can add the difficulties of lip readers.
Okay, thank you. Student who lip read cannot function in darkened. In front of your face can, no, sorry. Students who lip read cannot function in darkened rooms. You may need to adjust the lighting in your teaching environment. If it is an interpreter is employed, follow the hints for working him assigned interpreter. So the next bullet, kindly read Miss Villaveles.
It is difficult for a student watching an interpreter to also take notes from an overhead or blackboard.
Okay, thank you. So an interpreter is unable to translate concurrently both and any information given an overhead. Important, therefore, information also be available as handouts. So the next one is provide written materials to supplement all lectures, tutorials, and laboratory session. So the announcement made regarding class times or activities, field work, industry visit, or etc. should be given in writing as well as verbally. So, ensure that list of the students' specific jargon and technical terms which students will need to acquire are made available in the course. So, if interpreters or captioning are being used as an adjustment, make this list available to the professionals providing the service as early as possible. Next slide, please. Kindly read, Miss Parenzo.
Any videos or trial use should where possible be captioned. In tutorials, assist student who lip read by having the student sit directly opposite you and ensure, if possible, that they can see all other participants. Students with hearing, sorry.
Thank you. So the first bullet, any videos or limits or times used should, where possible, be captioned. So when this is not possible, you will need to consider alternative ways for students with hearing impairment to access the information. So the second one is control the discussion so that the only person is speaking at a time. Control the discussion so that only person is speaking at a time. So the third one is students with hearing loss, especially those is associated speech issues, may prefer to have another students present their tutorial papers. Language abilities are often affected by hearing loss depending on the age of consent. So, students who acquire their hearing loss early in life may have literacy issues. In some cases, providing reading less will before the start of a course for students with a hearing loss can be beneficial. Next slide, please. So allow assignment or reviews to be completed on an in-depth study of a few texts rather than a board study of many. The third one is using Auslan interpreters and live remote captioning may require some adjustment in teaching styles. Particularly the pace of the learning. So if you consult with the providers of the service early to identify and potential changes. So the last one is where live remote captioning is provided. A transcript of the session can usually be accessed within 24 hours. So it is recommended that this be emailed directly to the student as an accurate record of reference. Next play. So, assessment strategies. Kindly read it all, Miss Hapal.
Assessment strategies. Always consider alternative forms of assessment where necessary. First bullet, when the range of literacy is an issue, students may require the use of a thesaurus or dictionary during exams. Second bullet, provide alternatives to those assignments which are based on interviews or questionnaires, and be flexible with assignment deadlines, particularly if students have had to wait for transcripts of learning sessions. Third bullet, provide extra time in examinations, particularly extra time for reading questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hapal. So these strategies aim to create more inclusive learning environment by addressing the specific needs of the students with limited literacy skills. So by implementing this accommodation, you can support their learnings to help them demonstrate their knowledge and understanding effectively. Please, next. So, learners with difficulty communicating. Kindly read Miss Paka.
Learners with difficulty communicating.
Miss Paka.
Madungog ko?
Yes.
Learners with difficulty communicating. Speech and language disorders. Wait. Di ko kakita sa Learners with difficulty communicating. Speech and language disorders can affect the way children talk, understand, analyze, or process information. Speech disorders include the clarity, voice quality, and fluency of a child's spoken words.
Okay, thank you, Miss Paka. So, speech disorder refer to difficulties with the way a child produces sounds or speaks, which can affect clarify, voice quality, and fluency. So, for example, a child with a speech disorder may struggle to articulate certain sounds or words, speak too fast or slow, or have an unusual voice tone or pitch. So these difficulties can make it challenging for the others to understand the child when they speak. Next. Please, next, Miss Bihagan. So, how do your speech, language, and hearing disorder affect in learning? Can you read, Miss Lastimoso? So I think Lastimoso is not around.
No, I'm here. So how do speech, language, and hearing disorders affect learning? Communication skills are at the heart of life's experience, particularly for children who are developing language critical to cognitive development and learning. Reading, writing, gesturing, listening, and speaking are all forms of language, a code we learn to use in order to communicate ideas.
So communication skills are essential for our daily experiences. And for children, developing these skills is crucial for cognitive development and learning. Language is a code we use to communicate, and it comes in many forms such as reading, writing, gesturing, listening, and speaking. So by learning how to use language, by learning, children use language that they can share their ideas, thoughts, and feelings with others and better understand the word around them. So please, next.
So why are speech and language skills so critical for literacy? Can you please read it, Miss Ocampo?
Yes. Why are speech and language skills so critical for literacy? Spoken language provides the foundation for the development of reading and writing. Spoken and written language have a reciprocal relationship. Each builds on the other to result in general language and literacy competence, starting early and continuing through childhood into adulthood.
So speech and language are critical of literacy. Literacy includes writing, reading, speaking, and listening, and it's the foundation of a child's learning process. So speech refers to the sounds we make that form words, while language refers to how we communicate with others, like talking and writing. So the best way to build both of these skills and develop your child's literacy is to talk, read, and sing with your child every day from day one. Your baby or the child loves listening to the tone and rhythm of your voice. So, for example, like looking at the pictures in a book and listening to words, whether it's through a story or a song. It exposes your child to vocabulary, words use, and picture identification, all of which encourage the language development. By talking, reading, and singing with your child early and often, you will give your child a strong foundation for future learning that will help set him up for success in school and in life through their daily experiences. Toddlers and preschoolers are learning new words every day and is the ideal time to continue building their budding vocabulary. Have conversations about your day, what you like, or whatever your imagination can think of. All conversations and any exposure to language can help your child develop his speech, language, and literacy skills. Speech, language, and literacy are closely linked because it develops good literacy skills. So you need to be able to speak and understand language. If you can't say it or understand it, you won't be able to read it or write. They are linked because some of the key skills we need for reading and writing are speech and language skills. Next slide, please. So what are the signs that a communication disorder is affecting school performance? Can you please read it, Miss Lastimosa? Yes.
What are signs that a communication disorder is affecting school performance? Children with communication disorders frequently perform at a poor or insufficient academic level, struggle with reading, have difficulty understanding and expressing language, misunderstand social cues, avoid attending school, show poor judgment, and have difficulty with tests.
So difficulty in learning to listen, speak, read, or write can result from problems and language development. Problems can occur in the production, comprehension, and awareness of language at the sound, syllable, word, sentence, and discourse levels. Individuals with reading and writing problems also may experience difficulties in So problems can occur in the production, comprehension, and awareness of language at the sound, syllable, words, sentence, and discourse levels. Individuals with reading and writing problems also may experience difficulties in using language strategically to communicate, think, and learn. So sometimes children that have trouble interpreting verbal information or following instructions are seen as less intelligent than their peers. So this is not the case. In most instances, these children simply aren't able to process information the same way as other children their age. So all children develop at their own timeline, and there is a wide range of communication development across age group and grades. So comparing a child's speech and language abilities to their peers doesn't necessarily mean they have a problem, but it can. So there are many signs that you may notice at home or hear from your child's teacher or school administrator that could signal they have a speech or language disorder. This includes first is not reading at the skill level expected for their grade, learning or remembering the names of letters or new vocabulary words. Next is difficulty understanding what their teacher is saying, trouble expressing their thoughts, ideas, and feelings through both verbal and written language, difficulty in speech production at the sound, syllable, word, phrase, sentence, or conversational level, not being able to interpret or correctly respond to social cues. Like, so how do speech language pathology
So how can speech language pathology services help children with speech and language disorders? So speech language pathology services can help children become effective communicators, problem solvers, and decision makers. So speech language pathology services can help children with speech and language disorders in several ways. So some of these ways include assessment. So a speech language pathologist can assess a child's speech and language skills to determine if they are developing normally or if there is a delay or disorder. And also a therapy. So if a child is identified as having a speech or language disorder, the speech language pathologist can provide therapy to help improve their communication skills. So next slide, please. So learners with difficulty walking or moving, please read Bandalan. So I think Bandalan is not around. So please read Paranzo.
Learner with difficulty walking or moving. Physical activity and mobility may be impaired by a number of conditions, some of which are permanent, others of a temporary or intermittent nature.
So regarding learners with difficulty walking or moving, speech language pathology services can also be helpful. For example, a child with cerebral palsy. So a cerebral palsy is a disorder that affects a person's ability to move and maintain balance and posture. So a child with cerebral palsy may have difficulty with oral motor control, which can affect their ability to speak clearly. So, and speech language pathologies can work with a child to improve their speech clarity and develop alternative communication methods if necessary. So, additionally, and speech language pathologies can work with the child's physical therapist to ensure that communication is integrated into their overall treatment plan. So next slide, please.
So, impact of a physical disability. Kindly read, please, Isolantes.
The impact of physical ability on learning will vary, but for most students, the issue of most significant physical access, manipulation of equipment in a laboratory, access to computers, participation in field trips, and the time and energy expended in moving around campus.
Okay, thank you. So, impact of a physical disability or physical disability, it may affect a person's physical activity, which can vary in range. Sometimes, it can affect personal self-esteem and limit the adaptation to the environment. For example, students might have a limited choice or of university and education due to the inaccessible buildings. And then our students may be affected in the following ways. Kindly, next please. First, when there are limited time to move between venues, students may miss the beginning of a class. The second one is fatigue is common for many of the students using facilities that others take for granted, such as toilets, such as toilets, food outlets, libraries, and lectures rooms may be a major undertaking. The third one is some students may experience functional difficulties and inability to write using a pen, reduced writing speed, involuntary head movements which affect the ability to read, standard size print, and reduced ability to manipulate resources in the learning environment. So they may have difficulty turning pages or using standard computers. So the third one is some students may experience functional difficulties and inability to write using a pen, reduced writing speed, and reduced writing speed and involuntary head movements, which affects the ability to the standards sizes print, and reduced ability is manipulate resources in the learning environment. So they may have difficulty turning pages or using standard computers. Next, please. Kindly read, Miss Paka.
Yes. What bullet, Miss?
First.
Okay. Students may have frequent unexpected absences from class owing to hospitalization or changes in the rehabilitation or treatment procedure.
Okay, thank you, Miss Paka. So the earlier periods of hospitalization may have meant gaps in schooling. The second, kindly read, Miss Parenzo. Parenzo, are you there? Okay, Sanchez. The second bullet.
Students with a long-standing mobility disability may have experienced gaps in their schooling due to periods of hospitalization.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sanchez. So this may have the second bullet is this may have affected their confidence in learning. So the third bullet, kindly read, Miss Ocampo.
Unsa nga bullet?
Third bullet, Miss.
Students with a mobility impairment may have fewer opportunities for interaction with other students.
Okay, thank you. So many student feelings of separateness and the learning environment that may have an impact on learning. Next, please.
Teaching strategies. Can you read, please, Miss Medrano? Oh, Medrano is not around. Villaveles.
Teaching strategies. There is a range of inclusive teaching strategies that can assist all students to learn, but there are some specific strategies that are useful in teaching a group which includes students with physical impairment.
So, teaching strategies aim to create an environment that all students, including those who have physical impairment, can fully participate and learn. Please, next. Okay, students who use wheelchairs, calipers, and crutches, or who are easily may find it difficult moving about within the constraints of lecture time. So as a teacher, we need to appreciate this kind of student. It may be necessary to provide them a brief of summary of any important information material covered at the beginning of the lecture towards the end. This recap ensure that students are not at a disadvantage due to their mobility limitations and them to catch up on any mass content, because as we all know that having a disability is not being easy to move fast. Do you agree, everyone? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes, Miss.
So next, kindly read Miss Robio. Please read Miss Robio. Mr. Banlalan. Please read Mr. Banlalan. Sanchez. Are you guys?
Okay. I'm sorry, Miss Willa Marie. I'm here.
Can you read it, please?
The second bullet, right?
The third bullet. Oh, yeah, the second bullet. Sorry.
Yes, second bullet. Check that the academic activities which take place off campus, interview, I think such as an industry visits, interviews, or field work are accessible to people with a mobility disability.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Karen. So this statement suggests to considering alternative option for individuals who may face mobility barriers. So for example, instead of conducting field trips that require physical movement to various locations, supplementary laboratory practicals, films, or videos can be offered as alternative options. So this alternative provide an opportunity for students with mobility disabilities to engage with the subject matter in meaningful way without being physically present at the off-campus activity. So third bullet is students with a mobility disability may sometimes wish to use their own furniture such as ergonomic chairs or sloped writing tables. So students with mobility disabilities may require specific furniture like ergonomic chairs or sloped writing tables to accommodate their needs. So these items can help promote comfort, proper posture and accessibility, enabling the students to fully participate in the classroom activities. However, to accommodate these furniture's requirements, it may be necessary to create additional space in teaching rooms because it is important to ensure that this extra space is added discreetly and seamlessly without causing any disruption or obstruction to the overall classroom environment. This way, students with mobility disabilities can benefit from the necessary adaptations without drawing unnecessary attention. Okay, next. Some students with back problems may prefer to stand and lecture or classes rather than sit. So as a teacher, we need to allow those children or students that have back problems to stand during our teaching hours because sitting for extended periods can put strains on their back or exacerbate their pain or discomfort. So by standing, these students can alleviate some of the pressure of their backs and potentially reduce this discomfort. So standing also allows to better posture and encourage movement, which can be beneficial for individuals with back issue. So next bullet is some students may need use tape recorder, note taker, in lectures. So some students require special accommodation in order to assess and process information in the lecture. So for example, they may need use a tape recorder to record the lecture or have a note taker who takes notes for them. Using these methods takes extra time to review and understand the information. No? To support these students with disability, some departments make it regular practice to record all lectures. This helps students, including those who have may occasionally absent due to their disabilities. So next is students may need extension to deadlines or work for involving, locating, and using library resources. So students may require deadline extension for assignments that involve locating and utilizing library resources. To support them in this process, it is beneficial to provide reading list well in advance of the resources to advance of the course. List well in advance of the course start date. So by doing so, students can start reading early and familiarize themselves with the recommended materials, so allowing them to more time to gather relevant resources from the library. So this promotes effective time management and ensure that students have ample opportunity to assess and utilize the required resources, thus reducing the need of deadlines and extensions. So last is academic isolation may be an issue for the students who are unable to participate in some class activities. So academic isolation refers to the situation where the students feel disconnected from their academic community and are unable to fully participate in the class activities. This may be an issue for students who, for various reasons, are unable to participate in a certain class activities. This may be an issue for students who is various reasons. For example, students with disabilities may have difficulty participating in physical activities, while students with limited access technology or internet connectivity may struggle to engage in online learning activities. When students are unable to participate in class activities, they may feel left out and disconnected from their peers, which can negatively impact their academic performance and overall well-being. Okay, next, please.
So assessment strategies.
In considering alternative forms of assessment, equal opportunity, not a guaranteed outcome, is the object not expected to lower standards to accommodate students with a disability, but rather are required to give them a reasonable opportunity to demonstrate what they have learned. Next slide, please. Students with mobility disability may need particular adjustments to assessment tasks. So once you have a clear picture of how the disability impacts on performance, you can consider alternative assessment strategies such as those suggested below. First is a reader or an oral examination, either presenting answers or tape, or participating in a VIVA are alternatives to the conventional written paper. An oral examination is not an easy option for students. Give the same time for an oral examination as for a written exam, but allow extra time for the students to listen to and refine or edit responses. In your assessment, allowance should be made for the fact that spoken answers are likely to be less coherent than written answers. Next is, for some students, the combination of written and oral examination will be most appropriate. It allows students to write answer plans or make outline notes, but then to answer the question orally, your assessment should be based on both the notes and the spoken presentation then. Next slide. Then students may need to use a personal computer or a personal assistant in an examination. If so, it may be necessary to provide extra space for equipment or a separate examination venue if the noise from equipment like a voice synthesizer is likely to be distracting for other students. Next is provide extra time and examinations for students who have reduced writing speed, because some students with a mobility disability may need rest breaks. Take-home examination and split papers may be options, given that some students may need double time to complete examination. Last is allow extensions to assignment deadlines if extensive research involving physical activity like frequent trips to the library or collection of data from this peers location is required. Next.
Learners with difficulty remembering and focusing. So the official terms that are often used for children who have difficulty remaining focused on a task that they are capable of doing are attention deficit disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So learners with difficulty remembering and focusing typically face challenges in retaining information and sustaining their attention during learning activities. They may struggle with short-term memory, concentration, and staying engaged with the task at hand. So for example, a student with working memory issues might struggle to solve complex math problems that require holding multiple intermediate steps in mind, or find it challenging to follow a series of instructions in a science experiment. Next slide, please. So ADD checklist. So distractibility, no persistence with a task, inconsistency in performance from one day to another, excessive daydreaming during a school-related task, needs to have mom next to him or her in order to finish works. Then the last one is forgetfulness of previously learned material, daily plans, and etc. So checklist for individuals with ADD. This interpretation suggests a checklist designed to help individuals with attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder manage their daily tasks and stay organized. So these checklists are typically personalized and can include items like prioritizing tasks, breaking them down into smaller steps, setting reminders, using organizational tools, and implementing strategies to enhance focus and minimize distractions. So such checklists can be helpful for individuals with ADD or ADHD to structure their routines and improve their productivity. So next slide, please.
So, ADHD checklist. So first is exists a child struggling with a more active form of a focusing issue will display some of these characteristics. So first is excess motor activity. So excess motor activity is characterized by excessive motor activity and presents differently across different ages. So ADHD individuals are constantly on the go, often changing from the activity to another, and find it difficult to settle. So the next one is impulsiveness. So impulsivity is the tendency to act without thinking. For example, if you blurt something out or buy something you had not planned to, or run across the street without looking to a degree, this kind of behavior is common, especially in children or teenagers, and isn't not necessarily a sign of trouble. The third one is insatiability. So insatiab in oh, insatiability is incapable of being satisfied, or quenchless had an insatiable desire for wealth, or like for example, like so many politicians, he had an insatiable appetite or desire hunger for power, or nothing it seemed would satisfy. So the fourth one is poor response to discipline. So issues as issues such as a poor home life, interactions with peers, racial and cultural pressures, and illegal behaviors outside of school can all lead to disciplinary problems in classroom. So the fifth one is moodiness. Moodiness, if you describe someone as moody, you mean that their feelings and behavior change frequently, and in particular that they often become depressed or angry without any warning. So the last one is sleep disturbance or very restless sleeper. So when the patient compliance of trouble sleeping is the patient having difficulty falling asleep. So the sleep and disorders they encountered by the clinician are disorders of initiating and maintaining sleep. It's what we call the insomnias. Next, please. So, informal evaluation. Kindly read Miss. Hapal?
Informal evaluation. The difficulty with determining if your child has a focusing issue is that parents often do not have a strong basis of comparison if they only have one other child at home who is homeschooling.
So informal evaluation, it is important to differentiate between a child whose main problem is focusing from a child who is exhibiting exhibiting task avoidance because of academic struggles. For example, if your child's Sunday school teacher says that he or she listens attentively to lessons and participates lively in the discussion that follow, but gets silly or does not complete assigned worksheets, you can consider that this child has a learning glitch instead of a focusing problem. And it is important to social information and observation from the other adults in the child's life who works him or her in both an academic and non-academic setting. Next, please.
Okay, how can you determine if your child has a focusing issue? But before I will proceed, I want to remind Miss Parenzo to prepare because later I will ask you. Okay, so how can you determine if your child has focusing issue? So checklist, just as the one above, help identify a child with an issue. Pediatrician can help dispel the observation you have on your child. Corners behavior skills or BSc can be obtained by your physician. Sunday school teachers, school of teachers, leaders, and adults who work with your children can help determine if he or she is experiencing a problem. So just remember the checklist above, no? So if your child has a sign of focusing issue, and also try to consult with a pediatrician doctor and try to ask their teachers, classmates, or friends. Maybe they also know about the behavior of your children. Either he or she has focusing issue or focusing problem. So please next. So resources for correction. So there are two ways that children have to expend more energy than their peers. So focus can be helped. One way is to use convention and the other is to employ correction of the problem. So when children has to use more energy to focus than their peers, there are two ways to help them. So the first way is to use is convention. So which means finding way to work around the problem. For example, a child who struggles to sit still during class might be allowed to stand or wiggle in place while they work, or they might take more frequent breaks. So the second way is to employ correction of the problem. So which means working to fix the underlying issue. This could involve things like providing the child with specialized tools or technology, or working with them on specific strategies to improve their ability to focus and concentrate. So both convention and correction can be effective ways to help children who struggle with focusing. And the best approach will depend on the individual child and their specific needs. So please next. Okay, now the question is, how can you determine if your children has a focusing issue? Are you ready, Miss Parenzo?
Yes, Miss.
Okay.
Should I answer, Miss?
Yes, Miss.
Alright, okay. So the question is, how can you determine if your children has a focusing issue? Well, on my own opinion, as a parent, in order to determine if your children have a focusing issue, you must go through careful observations and considerations of their behavior and performance in various situations, such as having the difficulty of paying attention, so that they so that you can determine if they really have that kind of issue. Also, they get easily distracted or frequently switch between different tasks. That's all, Miss. That
Okay, thank you, Miss Marenzo, for that great answer. So as what I've said earlier, just check the checklist above, no? And also, there are so many signs to look up to know if your child has a focusing issue. Okay, please, next.
So compensation. So employ one-on-one tutoring. So children with attention problems thrive when adult works on one-on-one with them. These children struggle to complete work on their own and find the frequent reminders to hurry up and complete their work debilitating. So one-on-one tutoring helps students focus on a specific task or subject and allows them to experience a different kind of learning to potentially reach new skill and confidence level. Choose a curriculum that does not require mainly independent work, such as computer curriculum program or a self-paced program. Next, please. Then reduce workbook exercises and busy work, such as copying and repeating math problems as much as possible by a good quality earphones for this child. So students get overwhelmed when they have much too much workbook and can cause stress on their mind and their body. So last workbook will allow students to be able to have more free time for family, friends, and work, especially at the young age, because it is an important for the parents to see the child's strengths and weaknesses, which creates a stronger bond. So if the child is spending most of their time doing workbook or homework, it may cause a barrier put between him or her to his or her family. Next slide.
Previous slide, please. Previous. Previous slide, L.
Okay, correction. So,
We'll have to
medication.
wait for a while.
Okay.
L, please, can we go back to the slide where keeping a child close to you?
Again?
Previous slide. Where Terence has reported.
Tell me when to stop.
L. Stop na. So focus on study skills. Previous slide. That one. So keep this child close to you throughout the day. So your proximity makes a big difference in his or her ability to focus. So keeping a child close to you is important for some reasons. For example, a child has emotional bonding. So staying close to a child throughout the day fosters emotional bonding and attachment. So this closeness provides a sense of security, trust, and connection, which are vital for a child's emotional being. So next slide, please. So group assignments. So when approaching a math page with many problems on it, put a star by the ones you want him or her to do in that sitting period. So by identifying the specific problems they need to work on and breaking them down into manageable pieces, so children can feel more confident and focused when approaching their work. So additionally, utilizing visual aids like construction paper or color coding can be a helpful way to reduce distractions and improve concentration. So teaching study skills like these can have a lasting impact on a child's academic success and overall confidence in their abilities. Next slide, please.
Okay, take breaks. Breaks. Kindly read Lastimoso. Lastimoso, are you there?
Yes, Miss.
Please read take breaks.
Take breaks. Many little breaks versus one big break helps these children stay on task.
Okay, thank you. So taking breaks helps you maintain your mental and physical health. So the next one is involve dad. Can they read Miss Tuebeo?
Involve dad. Assign one subject for dad to do with the child in the evening when he is home.
Okay, thank you, Miss Tuebeo. So dads often have a different approach to teaching, and the child gets the important one-on-one time that helps him or her be successful. And dads, he makes sure that he knows that the chunking approach and how to reduce mundane and repetitive tasks. Next, please. Use more right brain strategies. Can they read Miss Velas?
Use more right brain strategies, since these employ color, humor, wordness, etc. to put velcro on the information.
Okay, thank you. So use more right brain strategies. These children may not necessarily be right brain learners, but the engaging aspect of right brain strategies keeps them interested and uses less focusing energy. Like, for example, when explaining a new concept or showing how to memorize materials, make it fun by having your child help you draw sketches with color materials or color markers. And the last one is adjust your expectation. Kindly read Miss Sanchez.
Adjust your expectations. Your other children may complete tasks without constant reminders, or may actually be able to perform chores without your intervention.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Miss Sanchez. So, adjust your expectation. If your special needs child could do that, he or she gladly would. He or she wants to please also, but does not have the physical ability to bring this about. Okay. And he or she is disappointed in himself or herself as you are. This takes such pressure of the child and models how to get several tasks done in a row without the feeling of failure. And adjust your expectation. If your child had a disabled arm or leg, it would be so much easier to adjust your expectation without feeling that you weren't teaching him or her how to be responsible. And this child this child has a real disability, but because it is not visible, it can so easily be seen as stubbornness, irresponsibility to laziness. God will help you find the right way to work with your child. Next, please.
Okay, but before I will proceed, I want to know if you guys are still there. Are you guys still there, everyone?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, so corrections. Medications. Even though most homeschooling parents are not interested in use medication to help their children focus, the discussion is warranted here, since there may be times when it is necessary, even if it is only for a short period of time. So please next. Reviews, please. Oh, wait, sa corrections. Okay, that's it. So serotonin boosting medications. So Ritalin, short release time. Concerta, sustained release time. Antidepressants, Zoloft, Prozac, Effexor, Wellbutrin, and etc. So next. So stimulants, Adderall, amphetamines, of dopamine boosting medication, Strattera. So while most parents who have homeschooled their children may not be interested in using medications to help their children focus, so there may be situations where medication is necessary. So even if it's only for a brief period of time, therefore, it is important for parents to be aware for their option and consult with a healthcare professional if necessary. So please next. Diet. It has known for over 20 years, first starting with Dr. Feingold and his famous Feingold diet that by reducing sugars, colorings, and preservatives, children with attention disorder have much easier time to focus. So over 20 years, researchers have found that children with attention disorder can have easier time focusing if there is diet are modified to reduce sugars, colorings, and preservatives. This idea was first introduced by Dr. Feingold and his Feingold diet. So by removing these activities from their diet, children with attention disorder may experience less hyperactivity and improved concentration.
So increase raw fruit and vegetable intake. So as we know from the research in books such as Children with Starving Brains by Dr. Chandels, many children are low in essential vitamins, minerals, and fatty acids. These children either are not getting the daily nutrients they need for their brain to function well, or they are eating the correct foods but are not absorbing the nutrients found in the food. So the enzymes contained in raw foods greatly assist the digestive system in absorbing nutrients. So this can make a huge difference with some children. To make this difference, parents always had grapes, apples, bananas, watermelon, cantaloupe, and other fruit around to eat and made sure that children had 3 servings a day. These parents also keep a plate of raw vegetables such as carrots, celery, broccoli, cauliflower, and green pepper strips along with plenty of ranch dressing around for lunch. Next slide, please. So use less processed food. So as the pioneering Dr. Fingold and many of the researchers following him found when food is boxed, it is filled with preservatives. Those preservatives can be very toxic to a child nervous system. So processed food also has no life in it. The rule of thumb for brain healthy eating is to shop as much as you can in the periphery of the grocery store where the plugs are in the walls. Buying food that is refrigerated in the store ensures you that the life-giving nutrients are still in there when it is canned or boxed. The live nutrients such as that fats that are good for the brain have been removed so that they do not go rancid on the shelf. Of course, there are some good brain fats that are not refrigerated, such as cans of tuna or salmon and mayonnaise. Next slide.
Previous slide, So increase water intake. Children are often tired because they are dehydrated. So increasing water intake is important because it can have several health benefits, including improved hydration, better digestion, and increased energy levels. For example, proper hydration, digestive health, and especially overall health and well-being. So next slide, please. So learners with difficulty with self-care. So learners with difficulty with self-care may struggle with activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, and grooming. So these learners may benefit from additional support and guidance in developing self-care skills. So next slide, please. So what are self-care skills? So please read Ms. Mindrano.
What are self-care skills? Self-care skills are the everyday tasks undertaken so children are ready to participate in life activities, including dressing, eating, cleaning.
So self-care skills refer to the ability to perform basic activities of daily living independently. These skills are important for maintaining personal hygiene and overall health and well-being. So, for example, a self-care skills is brushing a toothbrush and toothpaste to clean the teeth and gums. So learners with difficulty with self-care may require additional support or guidance to learn how to brush their teeth effectively. So another example is dressing oneself, which involves selecting appropriate clothing, putting it on, and fastening any buttons or zippers. So again, learners with difficulty with self-care may require additional support or guidance to develop these skills. So next slide, please.
So why are self-care skills important? Can they read Miss Parenzo?
Self-care skills are one of the first ways that children develop the ability to plan and sequence task performance, to organize the necessary materials, and to develop the refined physical control required to carry out their tasks. Opening lunch boxes, drawing or standing to pull up pants.
Okay, thank you. So the term self-care would suggest that these skills are expected to be done independently and in many cases it it becomes inappropriate for others to assess for such tasks. So more specifically, many preschools and schools will have a requirements for children to be toilet trained starting at their century. So it makes up when such skills are difficult, this also become a limiting factor for many others' life experience. It makes it difficult to have a sleepovers at friends or families' houses to go on school or preschool executions. And they may experience bullying or miss out on other social experience as a result. Next, please. So, what are the building blocks necessary to develop self-care skills? So first, hand and finger strength. So it is an ability to exert force against resistance using the hands and fingers for utensils use. Second, hand control. The ability to move and use the hands in a controlled manner, such as cutlery used for eating. Next, please. The third one is sensory processing. Accurate registration, interpretation, and response to sensory stimulation in the environment and one's own body. And object manipulation. It is the ability to skillfully manipulate tools, including the ability to hold and move pencils and scissors with controlled use or everyday tools such as toothbrush, hairbrush, and cutlery. Next, please. Expressive language or using language. The use of language through speech, sign, or alternative forms of communication to communicate one's needs or thoughts and ideas. The next one is planning and sequencing. The sequential multi-step or task or activity performance to achieve a well-defined results. Breathing and teeth cleaning. Next. resistive language or understanding, comprehension of language. The compliance, the last to develop self-care skills is the compliance. It is ability to follow simple adult-directed routines and routines, or does not demonstrate avoidance behaviors where the them to do it and interrupting what they were doing. Next, please.
So, how can I tell if my child has problems with self-care skills? So, if a child has self-care difficulties, it might be unable to feed themselves independently, require more help than others of their age to get dressed or undressed, find it difficult to tolerate wearing certain clothes, please next. Struggle to use cutlery, needs adults to open food packaging in their lunch box, refuse to eat certain foods, be unable to coordinate movements to brush teeth, require extensive help to fall asleep, choose to toilet only at home where there is adult support, be late to develop independent daytime toileting, show limited motivation for independence in self-care, so they wait for adults to do it for them instead. So if your child is having difficulty with a basic self-care task such as feeding, dressing, toileting, and hygiene, they may have self-care difficulties. Other signs may include struggling with using cutlery, needing to help to open food packaging, refusing to eat certain foods, and needing extensive help to fall asleep. So limited motivation for independence and self-care is also potential indicators of self-care difficulties. Next, please.
So what other problems can occur when you see difficulties with self-care skills? When a child has self-care difficulties, they might also have difficulties with, next slide please. Following instructions, the ability to understand and be able to initiate the task to be done as pre-requested by others. Next is receptive language. Comprehension of language refers to how your child understands language. Expressive language refers to how your child uses words to express himself or herself. Next slide. Eating, the physical skill of using cutlery in an age-appropriate manner, as well as eating a good range of food. So if a child has self-care difficulties, they might not be able to feed themselves independently, require more help than others of their age to get sleeping, being able to independently settle and resettle to get sleep. Next slide. Dressing and undressing, or assisting with dressing to an age-appropriate level and recognizing what article of clothing go where and in what order. Active in dressing and undressing activities is important for a child or adult's self-esteem as well as developing independence within season Each child or adult is facilitated verbal instructions or physical support to take an active part and succeed in everyday age-appropriate dressing and dressing activities, from taking off shoes, socks, and coats to putting on items of clothing and going down buttons and tying laces. So social skills, determined by the ability to engage in reciprocal interaction with others, either verbally or non-verbally, to compromise with others and be able to recognize and follow social norms. Next slide, please. Fine motor skills, fingers and hand skills such as opening lunch boxes, tying shoelaces, doing up buttons. So fine motor skills involve the use of the smaller muscles of the hands, commonly in activities like using pencils, scissors, constructions with Lego or Duplo, doing up buttons and opening lunch boxes. Fine motor skill efficiently significantly influences the quality of the task outcomes as well as the speed of task performance. Efficient fine motor skills require a number of independent skills to work together to appropriately manipulate the object or perform the task. So gross motor skills, whole body physical skills using the core strength muscles of the trunk, arms, legs, such as getting on and off the toilet and standing to dress. It has ability required to control the muscle of the body for large movements such as crawling, walking, and jumping. Next slide, please. Organization. The ability to know what a task involves, the material required, how to collate them, such as packing the bag for preschool or even getting dressed. Next. Learning new tasks and retaining the information for the next time the task is done again, and executive function and higher order listening and thinking skills refers to a set of skills. These skills underlie the capacity to plan ahead and meet goals, display self-control, follow multiple steps, directions, even when interrupted, and stay focused despite distraction, among others. Next slide.
So what can be done to improve self-care skills? So first is visual schedule of the steps involved. So second is reward chart for independent completion of tasks or attempt at in the early stages. So next slide, please. The third one is small steps. So breaking down self-care skills into smaller steps and supporting the child through each step so that in time they can do more for themselves. So the next one is routine. Use the same routine or strategy each time you complete the same task to help them learn in faster. So next slide. So the next one is consistency. Be consistent with the words and signs used to assist for the child, and keep instructions short and simple, and allow enough time. So ensure that there is enough time available for the child to participate in self-care activities without feeling rushed. Practice dressing in the weekend to start with before then doing it before rushing to preschool or school. The next slide. So those are excellent strategies for improving self-care skills in learners who may struggle with activities. So by breaking down the skills into smaller manageable steps and providing visual aids and rewards for successful completion, learners can build their confidence and skills over time. Additionally, using consistent routines and strategies can help learners with difficulty with self-care to better understand and remember the steps involved in these activities. So allowing enough time for self-care activities and avoiding rushing can also reduce stress and increase the likelihood of successful completion. With patience, guidance, and support, learners can develop the self-care skills they need to live happy, healthy, and independent lives.
So next, what activities can help improve self-care skills? So first is small parts of activities. So practice the students are doing a small part of a task this day as it is easier to learn new skills in smaller sections. Next, please. Second one is observation. Have your child to observe other family members performing everyday self-care. So, critical observation is critical thinkers gather data during observation and this set up the relevant details to focus on the meaningful information. The third one is role play. Self-care tasks as eating, dressing, or brushing teeth with teddy bears, and doing it on others can help learning it before then doing it on yourself. Next, please. Take care of others. Allow the child to brush your hair or feet first before brushing their own. The last one is timers. To indicate how long they must tolerate an activity they may not enjoy, such as teeth cleaning. Next, please.
Okay. Why I should seek therapy if I notice difficulties with self-care skills in my child. So therapeutic intervention to help a child with self-care difficulties is important as please next. Self-care skills are everyday practice of the foundation skill for academic performance, not just life skills. The more these tasks are performed incorrectly, often daily, the more the bad habits age in dependent full children much decide sleep over kind age children. So teaching a child self-care skills is important because these skills are not just important for daily living, but also as the foundation for academic performance. So when a child struggles with self-care tasks such as dressing themselves, brushing their teeth, or feeding themselves, it can lead to negative habits being reinforced over time. So making it even harder for them to learn these skills. So by intervening early on the providing therapeutic support to help the child learn and master self-care skills, we can prevent these habits from becoming ingrained and help the child become more independent as they grow old and school. This can help them to participate the peers without being feeling limited by their difficulties with self-care. Please next. If I left untreated, what can difficulties with self-care skills lead to? So when children have self-care difficulties, they might also have difficulties with reluctance to attempt not only soft skills but many other skills that require planning and sequencing. Next. More difficulty resolving the difficulties as it becomes harder to change. So when children have self-care difficulties, it is common for them to also struggle with other skills that requires planning and sequencing, such as organizing their belongings or completing multi-step tasks. This may be due to challenges in their ability to process and execute instruction in logical sequence. In addition, children self-care difficulties may become reluctant to attempt new skills as they may fear failure or feel overwhelmed by the demands of the task. So this can lead to a lack of motivation and a sense of learned helplessness. So as these difficulties persist, it becomes harder for the children to change their behavior and develop new skills. They may struggle with problem solving and adapting to new situations, which can impact their overall functioning and development. So it is important to provide support and guidance to help children overcome these challenges and build their confidence and independence.
So reliance upon an adult helper. So a child may become accustomed to having a parent or career assisting with self-care skills to the point it becomes an expectation. So when a helper is not there, they might display behavioral challenges. Next is as a child gets older and the gap between them and their peers increases, they are more likely to become aware of this gap, resulting in lowered self-esteem and possibly reluctance to attempt activities for fear or of failure. Next slide, please. So what type of therapy is recommended for self-care skill difficulties? So if your child has difficulties with self-care skills, it is recommended they consult an occupational therapist. So occupational therapies is a branch of healthcare that help people of all ages who have physical, sensory, or cognitive problems. Occupational therapy can help them regain independence in all areas of their lives. It helps with barriers that affect a person's emotional, social, and physical needs. To do this, they use everyday activities, exercise, and other therapies. Help kids play, improves their school performance, and aids their daily activities. It also boosts their self-confidence and sense of accomplishment.
So next slide, please. So thank you everyone for listening and participating. Again, I am teacher Rachel.
And I am teacher Bella.
And I am teacher Sansai.
And I am teacher Terence.
And it is the end of our discussion. Elabel, stop na tayo.
Unsa?
Mana?